The controversial and intriguing legacy of Boris Yeltsin, 12 lesser-known facts. Boris Yeltsin remains one of the most polarizing figures in Russian history. Serving as the first president of the Russian Federation, Yeltsin was the immediate predecessor and, in many ways, the boss of Vladimir Putin. His tenure was marked by significant political, economic, and social upheaval. While he played a pivotal role in ending Soviet rule, his subsequent leadership was fraught with controversies. This video sheds light on some of the more scandalous facts from his life and career. Fact number 1. The Parliament Crisis, 1993. The tension between Yeltsin and the Russian parliament reached its peak in 1993 when the legislative body attempted to strip him of his presidency. Yeltsin responded by dissolving the parliament, but members declared his actions unconstitutional and impeached him. As both sides dug in, Moscow became the epicenter of political chaos. Demonstrations, protests, and violent confrontations ensued. With the parliament barricading itself inside the White House, Russia's parliament building, not to be confused with the US presidential residence, Yeltsin took a drastic step. On October 4, he ordered the military to bombard the building. The two-day assault resulted in an estimated 187 deaths and over 400 injuries. After the dust settled, Yeltsin, backed by the military, remained in power, and by December, a new constitution was approved in a controversial referendum, granting the Russian president greater powers than most democratic counterparts. Number 2. Economic shock therapy. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Yeltsin and his team, led by economist Yegor Gaidar, initiated the shock therapy reforms to transition Russia from its state-controlled economy to capitalism in the early 1990s. While it aimed to combat hyperinflation and stabilize the economy, its immediate effects were disastrous for many. State assets were sold at rock-bottom prices, resulting in a handful of individuals amassing enormous wealth almost overnight. These individuals became the oligarchs. For the majority, however, the reforms spelled disaster. Savings were wiped out, industries collapsed, unemployment skyrocketed, and millions were plunged into poverty. Yeltsin's era, as a result, became synonymous with economic instability, vast income disparities, and the unchecked rise of oligarchy. Number 3. Public inebriation. Boris Yeltsin's erratic behavior in public became a matter of international discussion during his presidency. He was often perceived as drunk during official events, leading to various diplomatic blunders. One of the most infamous instances was during his 1994 visit to Berlin. Yeltsin, seemingly under the influence, unexpectedly grabbed a baton and began conducting a military orchestra with enthusiastic, albeit unprofessional, gestures. The episode, broadcasted globally, was viewed by many as a national embarrassment. Such incidents fueled criticism of Yeltsin's leadership and raised questions about his capability to lead a nation undergoing monumental transitions. Number 4. The Chechen Wars. The Chechen Wars were a series of conflicts between Russia and the Chechen Republic. The First Chechen War began in December 1994 when Yeltsin sent troops to quell the Chechen separatist movement. What was assumed to be a swift military campaign turned into a drawn-out conflict, with Russian forces facing stiff resistance. The war was characterized by brutal urban warfare, particularly the Siege of Grozny, where intense street-to-street fighting and indiscriminate bombing led to the deaths of thousands of civilians. The conflict culminated in the Khasevyurt Accord in 1996, granting Chechnya substantial autonomy but not full independence. However, peace was short-lived. In 1999, following apartment bombings in Russia and insurgent incursions into neighboring Dagestan, the Second Chechen War began. While the Russian military employed overwhelming force and reclaimed control of the republic, both wars resulted in significant civilian casualties, human rights violations, and lingering animosity. Number 5. The family. Boris Yeltsin's presidency, particularly during his second term, was notable for the disproportionate influence of an inner circle termed the family. This unofficial group consisted of his daughter, Tatyana Dyachenko, oligarchs like Boris Berezovsky and Roman Abramovich, and other political associates. They played pivotal roles in shaping national policy, media narratives, and even the appointment of key political positions. This consolidation of power raised significant concerns about transparency, governance, and the potential for nepotism and favoritism. Critics argued that the family made crucial decisions behind closed doors, overshadowing official government channels and putting personal interests before national concerns. Number 6. Resignation and Putin's rise. On the last day of the 20th century, Yeltsin made a surprising move by announcing his resignation from the presidency. This unexpected decision put Vladimir Putin, the recently appointed prime minister and former KGB officer, in the spotlight as the acting president. Many speculate that Yeltsin's resignation, rather than serving out his term, was a strategic move. By stepping down early, Yeltsin paved the way for Putin to run in the upcoming 2000 presidential election with the advantage of incumbency. Moreover, shortly after taking the helm, Putin signed a decree granting Yeltsin immunity from prosecution, shielding the former president and his family from potential legal challenges related to his tenure. This act further cemented the notion that Yeltsin's resignation was, in part, a bid to secure his and his family's future in the tumultuous landscape of Russian politics. Number 7. Oligarchic connections. The 1990s in Russia, often termed the Wild East, was marked by the meteoric rise of oligarchs, powerful businessmen who managed to amass vast fortunes during the rapid privatization of state assets. Key figures like Boris Berezovsky, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, and Roman Abramovich became influential not just in the business realm but also in politics. Yeltsin's relationship with these oligarchs was symbiotic to some extent. They provided financial support for his political campaigns, particularly the 1996 presidential election. In return, they benefited from the government's laissez-faire attitude, acquiring major state enterprises at a fraction of their value. This loans for shares program, where oligarchs lent money to the government in exchange for temporary stakes in major state enterprises, was particularly controversial. Yeltsin's intimate association with these figures made many Russians perceive his administration as deeply entrenched in corruption and cronyism. Number 8. Health concerns and secrecy. Boris Yeltsin's health was a recurring concern during his tenure. He suffered from heart issues, leading to a quintuple heart bypass surgery in 1996. Despite the severity of his conditions, the Kremlin often downplayed or remained tight-lipped about the full scope of his health problems. This lack of transparency led to widespread speculation about Yeltsin's ability to govern effectively. Rumors circulated about potential replacements and the real power dynamics within the Kremlin, especially during his prolonged absences. The secrecy surrounding his health issues further fueled distrust in his administration and highlighted the opacity of Russian governance. Number 9. Attempted coup, 1991. In August 1991, hardline members of the Soviet government and military attempted a coup to overthrow Mikhail Gorbachev, the then leader of the Soviet Union. During this critical juncture, Boris Yeltsin, then the president of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, emerged as a symbol of resistance. On August 19, in a defining moment of his political career, Yeltsin climbed atop a tank outside the Russian White House in Moscow and vociferously denounced the coup plotters. This act of defiance not only galvanized public opposition against the coup but also significantly bolstered Yeltsin's political standing. Though he emerged as a hero in the aftermath, the subsequent years were tumultuous. The dissolution of the Soviet Union later that year led to economic hardships, political instability, and the challenges of transitioning to a new political and economic order, casting a shadow over Yeltsin's leadership in the newly independent Russia. Number 10. Relationship with Putin. When Boris Yeltsin appointed Vladimir Putin as prime minister in August 1999, few could have anticipated Putin's meteoric rise to power and the profound changes he would usher in for Russia. Yeltsin saw in Putin a loyal figure who might provide a safeguard for his family and legacy, especially given the swirling allegations of corruption around the Yeltsin administration. However, once in power, Putin embarked on a journey of consolidating power, curbing the influence of oligarchs, and establishing a strong centralized state, often at the expense of democratic institutions. Yeltsin's era of chaotic democracy transitioned into Putin's era of managed democracy, which was characterized by tighter media controls, suppression of political opposition, and a greater emphasis on Russian nationalism. Although Yeltsin and Putin maintained public decorum, behind the scenes, their relationship was more nuanced, as Putin's style and approach marked a clear departure from Yeltsin's vision for Russia. Number 11. Drunken diplomacy in the U.S. In September 1994, during an official state visit to Washington, D.C., an incident occurred which later gained legendary status in the annals of diplomatic gaffes. Late at night, the U.S. Secret Service found Yeltsin, apparently intoxicated, outside the White House trying to hail a cab. When questioned, he reportedly stated he wanted to get a pizza. While the event was kept under wraps at the time, it was later revealed by Bill Clinton in his memoirs, painting a picture of Yeltsin's unpredictable and often embarrassing behavior during foreign visits. Number 12. Erratic public appearances. In a 1997 trip to Stockholm, Sweden, Yeltsin made headlines with a series of bizarre gestures and comments. In what was supposed to be a standard press briefing, he startled onlookers with erratic behavior, including vigorous hand gestures and a string of confusing statements. Many speculated that he was under the influence of alcohol, and these speculations were fueled by his history of unpredictable public appearances. This event, among others, led to international concerns about his fitness for office and the direction in which he was leading Russia.